If you're attacked by a dog in the state of North Carolina, your dog bite claim may be more difficult to settle than it is in most other states. My guest today is North Carolina personal injury attorney Michael A. DeMayo of the law offices of Michael A. DeMayo, and he's going to talk with us about this topic. So Michael, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, Michael, what is it that makes North Carolina such a difficult state for handling a dog bite claim?
Well, the rules in North Carolina are significantly different, Cindy, than the rules in most states with regards to dog bites. First, specifically, North Carolina has what's called a contributory negligence bar, which means if you're even 1% at fault or responsible for your injury, you generally don't recover. In addition to that, in North Carolina, we have a rule that's basically essentially called the vicious propensity rule, which essentially says that the dog gets one bite. In other words, the homeowner or the dog owner is allowed to assume that the dog doesn't have a vicious propensity until that dog has exhibited that behavior and has exhibited that behavior with one bite. Now, there are some exceptions that the courts have carved out with specific breeds like Rottweilers and Pit Bulls that are known specifically as a breed to be very vicious in and of themselves and be subject to or be more amenable to biting folks, and those generally don't get the one bite rule. But essentially in most situations, if the dog has not bitten anyone before, if you're the first person they bite, there may not be any liability or responsibility on the part of that dog owner.
Okay. Well, Michael, does a dog bite have to break the skin for someone to file a claim? Or is there a certain threshold that must be met before filing a claim?
No, the threshold is injury. We sometimes have dog bites that are not really bites, they're more knockdowns, and people get fractures of some type, and there's not necessarily a puncture wound or a number of stitches. Unfortunately, what we see quite often in the summer months is we see a lot of dog bites to the faces of young children because they tend to be at the level of a dog, and for some strange reason or reason that statistically seems to be consistent, we seem to get 1, 2, 3, 4-year-olds that have some fairly heinous scars as a result of dog bites. So no, there doesn't have to be any, from an injury standpoint, any threshold as far as serious or permanent, but generally if a dog bites you and they have any kind of significant bite on you, there's going to be some sort of permanent scarring, notwithstanding whatever reconstruction or plastic surgery that's done.
Okay. Now, what about if someone is bitten while at work? Does that come under workers' compensation laws, or how is that handled?
That's interesting. We've never had that situation occur, but certainly if the person was on the job at the time, they would be covered by workers' compensation, and I don't think it would really matter per se the one bite rule, the vicious propensity rule, because obviously the employer would somehow be responsible or be aware that the dog was there. Depending on, obviously the circumstances, there might be a claim in addition to the workers' comp case, but as a general rule, your workers' compensation claims are your exclusive remedy.
Okay, and how is the liability assessed? For instance, my child could be bitten in the neighbor's yard by the neighbor's dog, or in the neighbor's yard by someone else's dog, or on a public roadway by the neighbor's dog. Are multiple parties sometimes responsible in these instances?
Well, it's generally the owner of the dog is going to be responsible for. Now, obviously, if the dog is at someone else's location, then homeowners would probably kick in. But generally, whoever is responsible for maintaining, controlling, and making sure that that dog, certainly if they have a vicious propensity, is either behind a fence or on a chain or in some way restrained on a leash. There are leash laws in particular cities and towns in North Carolina, and that also can have some relevance as to whether or not there's liability. But generally, you have to look at the specific instance, the owner, how the situation occurred, how it developed, how the individual that was bitten got into that situation. Oftentimes our clients are, just walking down the road and they get bitten because the dog has either escaped its fenced-in area or their leash or something of that nature.
Well, these situations can certainly be very complex. Michael, if someone has specific questions, how can they reach your office to get them answered?
They can call our office, Cindy, at 1-877-333-1000. They can also find us on the website, which is DeMayoLaw.com, and they can also text us by texting the word DeMayo to 333-100, and they will get a number of different options how to get in touch with our office. But any of those three options are very good options to get in touch with our office.
Very good. Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Cindy Speaker from Main Street Law.